You'll curse this world if you bring that baby into it. Those were my sister's exact words when I told her I was finally pregnant again. Not congratulations. Not cautious hope. Just a sentence that sounded more like a death threat than sisterly concern. My name is Mara, and I've been trying to have a baby for 10 years. 10 years of doctor visits, hormone shots, surgeries, miscarriages, and false hope. 10 years of silence in a house that should have had lullabies. 10 years of drifting further from who I used to be. When I got the call from my OB confirming the heartbeat was strong this time, measuring right on track at 10 weeks, I didn't scream or cry. I just stared at the ceiling, numb, afraid that even joy might scare the baby away. It was my husband, Ian, who cried. He fell to his knees, buried his face into my stomach and whispered, "Hi baby, it's Daddy." I didn't know how to hold that moment. It was too fragile. Like glass under fire. I knew I should wait until the second trimester to tell people, but I wanted my sister June to know. Despite everything. Despite how distant we've grown. Despite the things she said in the past. We used to be close. When we were kids, we did everything together, matching Halloween costumes, shared diaries, even had a secret language. She was my best friend until she became something else. Someone colder. Someone who looked at me like I was broken. It started after she had her second kid. She got pregnant easily, popped out 2 daughters in under 3 years, and made it look effortless. Somewhere between her baby shower and my 3rd miscarriage, she stopped calling. I guess it was easier to ghost a grieving woman than pretend to understand her. I showed up at her house with a candle and a sonogram. She barely looked up from her laundry basket. "Is that another one?" she said, motioning toward the photo in my shaking hands. 10 weeks, I whispered, forcing a smile. Heartbeat strong. She paused. Not out of emotion, but calculation. "You're doing this again?" she asked, folding a onesie with mechanical ease. "I'm finally doing this. It's working this time. I feel it." She dropped the clothes into the basket and walked past me into the kitchen. No hug. No joy. No warmth. "You need to stop," she said without turning around. I blinked. "Excuse me. This has to end, Mara," she snapped, finally facing me. "You keep pushing your body like it's a science experiment. Your womb is a war zone. That baby shouldn't even be in there." My hands tightened around the candle. "What the hell are you saying?" "I'm saying," she breathed, "that you're not meant to be a mom. And if this child somehow survives, it'll live with your pain. Your trauma. You think children don't absorb that? You think trauma doesn't get passed down in blood?" I dropped the sonogram. She didn't flinch. "You're cursing this kid. Maybe this is God's way of telling you to stop." That word. Curse. It hit something ancient inside me. A fear I hadn't named. I left her house with silent steps. Ian didn't ask what happened when I got home. He knew. June had always found a way to poison what little joy I had left. But something in her words burrowed into me. I started dreaming of blood. Of whispers in the dark. I'd wake up clutching my belly, breathless, certain I'd lost the baby again. But every time the heartbeat was there. Strong. Fighting. I tried to push June out of my head. But I couldn't. Not after the voicemail she left a week later. "You're going to lose this one too. I dreamed it. The child was screaming and you were drowning. Just stop, Mara. Let it go." I played it on speaker for Ian. He nearly threw my phone into the wall. "We're cutting her off," he said. But I wasn't ready. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't just about blood. Or history. It was about needing her to be wrong. At 15 weeks, I hosted a small dinner for close friends. I wanted to celebrate. Feel normal. I'd bought little favors and even decorated the house with yellow sunflowers and pastel blue streamers. June showed up uninvited. She walked in like she owned the place, dressed in a black turtleneck and leather boots, eyes scanning the room like it was a crime scene. "I thought you weren't coming," I said, trying to keep my voice light. I wasn't. But then I thought someone should be here to tell the truth. That was the moment I should have kicked her out. But I didn't. Because I was still that kid who thought her big sister held the world together. We sat down for dinner. She barely touched her food. About halfway through, she stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. "I have something to say," she announced, her voice slicing through the soft hum of the guests. No, June, I said quickly. Not now. But she ignored me. Mara is making a mistake. One that could end very badly. She's been through 5 miscarriages. Her doctors told her the odds were against her. She has uterine scarring, hormone imbalance, a history of depression. And yet she's choosing to risk everything her life, this child as for what? A fantasy. Silence. Forks froze. Mouths hung open. And what happens when this fantasy ends? She continued. Are we all supposed to act surprised when she's back in the hospital again? When she buries another dream? Ian stood up, face burning. You need to leave, he said. June locked eyes with me. I had a vision, she whispered. This child brings darkness. You think I'm cruel? I'm saving you. You don't know what's coming. That's when I saw it. Not cruelty. Not jealousy. But fear. Real unshakable fear. I don't remember the rest of that night. I only remember waking up on the bathroom floor, cramping, bleeding, and screaming. The ambulance ride was a blur. Ian's hand never left mine. At the hospital, they rushed me into ultrasound. And there it was. The heartbeat. Still strong. Still fighting. I wept. The doctor looked at me strangely. You're lucky, she said. Very lucky. That tear was close. It was then that I finally blocked June. But blocking her didn't stop the dreams. A week later, I received an anonymous envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a torn page from a medical textbook, highlighting rare pregnancy complications that led to stillbirth. And a note typed on an old typewriter. You can still save it from the pain. That night I called my mother. She hadn't taken sides in all these years, always saying, I won't get in the middle. But now I needed her to choose. She says she had a vision, I told her. There was a long pause. She's been seeing someone, my mother finally said. A spiritual advisor. My blood went cold. Who? Some woman named Mara. Runs a group outside town. They do ancestral healing. Trauma release. Past life readings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She told me you were cursed, my mother whispered. That the baby is carrying the weight of your lost children. That unless you release them, it'll suffer the same fate. And then came the twist I wasn't ready for. She told me the same thing about you, she said. When I was pregnant with you, I almost lost you. I never told you. And now June says it's a cycle. A generational wound. My breath caught. You went to her too? Only once, she whispered. But she knew things. Things she shouldn't have. I sat there, one hand on my stomach, heart pounding. Maybe it was all nonsense. Or maybe something was following us. Something buried deep in blood and bone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the nursery that wasn't really a nursery yet. Just a quiet room with a rocking chair and a stack of baby books I couldn't bring myself to open and watch the shadows stretch across the walls. A part of me wanted to rip everything down. Burn the books. Tear the sonogram pictures off the fridge. Silence the hope. But the other part, the stronger part, held my belly tighter. I won't let anything happen to you, I whispered. Not them. Not a curse. Not a ghost. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing I was fighting anymore. Something real had entered the picture. Not just June's cruelty or my paranoia, but this Mara. The so-called spiritual guide June had been seeing. The one who told her about a generational curse. The one who, according to my own mother, knew things. I needed answers. The next day, while Ian was at work, I drove to my mom's house and demanded everything. She hesitated, clearly scared, but eventually handed me a name and an address scrawled on the back of an old envelope. Don't go there, Mara, she warned. June wasn't the same after she started seeing her. It was like she got hollowed out. Obsessed. But I'd already decided. If I wanted peace, I had to look the monster in the eye. The address led me to a place just outside town, deep into the hills, past the paved roads, where the trees leaned in too close and the silence felt unnatural. The house was old and wooden, paint peeling, windows shuttered. Wind chimes made from bones or something that looked like bones hung from the porch. I almost turned around. Almost. But the door creaked open before I could knock. You came, said a voice. Soft. Low. Female. I wondered if you would. She was older than I expected. Maybe in her 60s. but with the kind of agelessness you see in fortune tellers and forgotten women. Her eyes were glassy blue, and her smile was wide but not warm. "I didn't come for a reading," I said, trying to sound firmer than I felt. "I came because my sister says you told her I'm cursed. That my child is cursed." She nodded. She misunderstood. "That's common." I blinked. "So I'm not cursed?" She walked slowly into the house, motioning for me to follow. The place smelled like burnt sage and mildew. Walls were covered in tapestries, old portraits, and dried herbs. Candles flickered on every surface. I said, "Your child carries memory." "That's different." "Memory? Blood remembers what the mind forgets," she said. "Every womb remembers its losses. Every child feels its ancestors." I clenched my fists. "You're saying I caused this? That I passed down grief?" "I'm saying your child may carry what you haven't faced." I wanted to scream at her. Tell her she was insane. That this was all a scam to control vulnerable women. But something about her didn't feel like a scam. It felt clinical. Like she believed every word. "What do I do?" I asked, barely above a whisper. She studied me. "You could do nothing. The child may grow and never feel the weight. Or it might. Some souls are more sensitive." I hesitated. "Is there a way to release it? Break it?" She nodded slowly. "There is. But it's not safe. Not for you. Not in your state." "I'm not afraid." "You should be." She turned and lit a black candle on the table between us. "If you truly want to face it, you'll need to go inward. Into the memory. Into the wound." "What does that mean?" But she didn't answer. She handed me a bundle of herbs tied in red thread. "Burn this tonight. Sit in the nursery. Alone. No lights. Let the child speak. Let the memory rise. Do not interrupt. Do not try to stop it. Let it pass through." I should have thrown it away the moment I left her house. Instead, I clutched it all the way home like a lifeline. Ian was suspicious. "Where were you?" he asked. "Getting closure," I lied. That night, when the house was asleep, I lit the herbs and sat in the nursery like she said. The scent was thick, earthy, bitter, almost sweet. First, nothing happened. Then the air shifted. The room got colder. And then I heard it. A baby crying. But not from outside. From inside me. I clutched my belly, breath sharp, and suddenly I wasn't in the room anymore. I was in a hospital. But not the real one. It was darker. The walls were cracked. The lights flickered. And I was on the table, legs in stirrups, surrounded by shadowy doctors with no faces. One of them whispered, "Not again." Another said, "She keeps trying." And then pain. Sharp like glass being pulled from my spine. I screamed. And over it all, a voice I recognized, June's. "She should have let go. She's hurting us all." I woke up on the floor, the herbs burned to ash, my dress soaked in sweat. The baby was still alive. I felt the kick an hour later. But something had changed. The next day, I got a call from my cousin Lydia. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She sounded nervous. "I had a weird dream," she said. "About you. And Aunt Claire." Aunt Claire had died when I was 6. A miscarriage. She bled out in her bedroom. I only vaguely remembered the funeral. "She was holding a baby," Lydia whispered. "A little girl with your eyes." She kept saying, "She's the last. Don't let it repeat." I didn't know what it meant. But I knew it wasn't random. I started digging into my family. Into records. Old journals. Anything. And what I found chilled me. 3 generations. 3 women. All with a history of lost pregnancies. My great-grandmother had 5 stillbirths. My grandmother had twins who died at birth. My aunt bled out. My mother nearly lost me. Each time the story was the same. Doctors don't know why. But now I wasn't so sure. What if it wasn't medical? What if it was memory? What if Mara was right? I needed to confront June one last time. I showed up at her house unannounced. She looked thinner. Tired. Her eyes had that same glassy sheen I saw in Mara's. "What do you want?" she snapped. "To talk. Really talk." She hesitated. Then stepped aside. We sat in her kitchen. No small talk. Just silence. "I went to Mara," I said. She didn't react. She gave me a ritual. I did it. Still nothing. I think this curse or whatever it is, it's not just mine. It's ours. That got her attention. She told me you'd come, she said quietly. Then she knows I'm not afraid anymore. June looked down at her hands. You should be. Then she said something I didn't expect. I lost one too. I blinked. What? Between Chloe and Maddie. A boy. 8 weeks. I never told anyone. Mara said he wasn't meant to be born. That he carried too much. I didn't know what to say. She looked up, tears in her eyes. I thought you were cursed. But maybe we both are. It wasn't an apology. But it was the closest thing she'd ever given me. I'm keeping the baby, I said. I know. She'll be the first. June nodded. The one who breaks it. I left her house with no peace, but with something better. Understanding. That night I whispered to the baby again. You are not cursed. You are a survivor. And for the first time since the test turned positive, I believed it. The nightmares didn't stop. They just changed. Instead of hospitals and faceless doctors, I now saw a hallway long, endless, lined with doors. Behind each one, a child cried. Some sounded newborn. Some were older. Some never made a sound at all. I would run from door to door trying to open them, but they were all locked. At the end of the hallway was always the same thing, a mirror. And every time I reached it, I'd see my reflection holding a baby with no face. And then I'd wake up, gasping for air. By week 34, the doctors were cautiously optimistic. Baby's strong, my OB told me. Heartbeat steady, movements good. Just a little more rest and we'll be in the clear. But rest was impossible when the weight of generations pressed on your spine. I spent my days organizing tiny clothes, rewriting birth plans I barely believed in, and keeping Ian in the dark. I didn't tell him about the ritual. Or the hallucination. Or the way I sometimes saw flickers of movement in the corner of the nursery when I was alone. He deserved peace at least. Then one afternoon I found something in the mail. A letter. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Of me in the nursery. Except I wasn't alone. Behind me, standing in the shadows, was a pale figure. A woman. Her face blurred, her hands resting gently on my shoulders. I screamed. Ian rushed in. What is it? I couldn't explain. I just handed him the photo. He studied it for a long time, frowning. Is this some kind of joke? It's real, I said. I didn't stage this. I don't even know who took it. He looked at me, eyes soft but scared. Mara, have you been sleeping? I nodded too quickly. I think maybe we should talk to someone, he said. Not because I think you're crazy, but because I love you. And you've been carrying this alone. I wanted to say no. I wanted to keep pretending I could manage it all. But his face was so sincere. So I said yes. He booked an appointment with a trauma therapist specializing in pregnancy loss. Dr. Calhoun. Stern but kind. She didn't flinch when I told her about the nightmares. Or the photo. Or Mara. Instead, she asked me a question that undid me entirely. What do you believe will happen if this baby lives? I couldn't answer. Because the truth was I didn't know who I'd be. My entire identity had been wrapped around the trying, the hoping, the grieving. Who was I if I finally got what I wanted? What if I didn't deserve it? What if the universe took it back the moment I relaxed? Dr. Calhoun nodded as I cried. That's the real curse, she said. Not magic. Not spirits. Shame. The inherited belief that your happiness must be earned through pain. The session didn't solve anything, but it was the first time I felt seen. That night, I wrote a letter to my unborn daughter. Dear Alara, I picked your name because it means cheerful and shining. I don't know if I'll be a good mom. I don't know if you'll inherit my pain. But I promise to love you louder than my fear. I promise to let you be a child, not a symbol. And if the curse ends with me, it's because of you. Love. Mom. I folded the letter and placed it in the top drawer of the dresser, next to the hospital bag. Then for the first time in weeks I slept through the night. But peace doesn't last long in stories like mine. 3 days later I got another letter. This time it was handwritten. By June. It said, Mara, I know you think everything's okay now, but it's not. I talked to Mara again. She said the darkness isn't done with us. Something's coming. I've seen it in my dreams. The baby isn't safe. You need to come to the lake house. Tonight. Bring nothing but the child. This is your last chance to undo it. Don't tell Ian. Don't tell Mom. Just come. June. I stared at the letter for a long time. It felt like a trap, but it also felt like a test. I called Mom, told her about the note. Her voice dropped into a whisper. She's spiraling, she said. She's too far in. Don't go. What if she's right? I asked. Then you protect your baby. Not by giving her up, but by staying grounded. I hung up and cried in the shower for an hour. Ian held me afterward. What happened? He asked. I almost told him everything. But then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, one image attached. I opened it. It was a picture of the lake house dock. A baby blanket laid neatly at the edge, and a line of red thread leading into the water. I screamed so loud Ian thought I was in labor. I showed him the photo. We're going, he said, already grabbing the car keys. I'm not letting this continue. We drove through the dark, headlights slicing through the trees. The lake house was a family cabin we hadn't used in years. Abandoned mostly. June had always loved it. Said it felt closer to spirit. When we arrived, the dock was empty. No blanket. No thread. But the front door was ajar. Ian took my hand. We're going in together. Inside, candles were lit in a circle on the living room floor. June was in the center, rocking back and forth, eyes wide and unfocused. You're too late, she whispered. Ian stepped forward. Where's the baby? She's still inside, June said. But the ritual has already begun. I felt a sudden jolt of pain in my belly. Sharp. Deep. I fell to my knees. Mara! Ian shouted, grabbing me. June stood slowly, her movements jerky. She's not meant to live. She's carrying all of us. She'll break if she breathes too long. Ian lunged for her, but she backed away, laughing. And then, my water broke. Right there, on the floor of the cursed house. Ian called 911. The operator talked him through contractions. June stood in the corner, chanting something under her breath. I don't remember much after that. Just pain. Screaming. Pressure. Then a rush of silence. Then the sound I'd been dying to hear for 10 years. A cry. A real piercing newborn cry. Ian caught her. Hands trembling, face soaked with tears. She's here, he whispered. She's okay. I held her for the first time, shaking. She was perfect. 10 fingers. 10 toes. A wail strong enough to wake the dead. I laughed and sobbed and whispered her name. Ilara. 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 Then I looked up and saw June. Staring. Empty. Defeated. She collapsed where she stood, sobbing into her hands. I wanted to be wrong, she said. I wanted her to die so I wouldn't have to face what I did. What you did? I asked. She looked at me with such raw pain it nearly split me open. I was pregnant again last year. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Mara. I ended it. I didn't think I could handle another child. But afterward, the guilt it consumed me. Mara fed it. Said the soul I rejected had nowhere to go. That it would haunt me until I found another vessel. That it chose your child instead. I stared at her in horror. You tried to make me give her up, I whispered. Because you thought she carried your grief. She nodded, sobbing. I couldn't carry it anymore. I should have screamed at her. I should have never forgiven her. But I held my daughter tighter. And I said, she's not yours. She's not mine either. She's herself. Ian finally stood. We're leaving. You need help, June. But not from ghosts. We took Ilara and left the house just as the sirens approached. In the hospital, the nurses said I was lucky. That everything went smoothly. That she was healthy. No one knew what we just escaped. Dr. Calhoun visited the next morning. I told her everything. She nodded slowly. And how do you feel now? I looked down at my daughter, asleep on my chest. Terrified, I said. But whole. 3 weeks after Ilara was born, I woke up to the sound of birds instead of screams. Her breathing beside me, light and steady, like the world finally remembered how to be gentle. Ian slept curled on the couch at the foot of our bed, arms folded over his chest, still protective even in dreams. And for the first time since everything, I felt like a mother. But becoming one didn't erase the scars, it only made me more aware of how deep they ran. June was admitted to a psychiatric facility the day after the birth. Voluntary, thank God. She asked to go. When Mom visited her, she said June just kept whispering, "It wasn't mine, it wasn't mine, it wasn't mine." Dr. Calhoun advised me not to visit. "She'll try to rewrite the story," she said. "Let her do that work alone." I agreed. Mostly. But I did send her a letter. "June, I forgive you. Not because what you did was forgivable, but because I refuse to let your fear wrap around my daughter's life like chains. Alara is not cursed. She is not a vessel. She is free. And I will protect that freedom even from you." Mara. I never got a reply. And part of me still wonders if she ever read it. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. The real question wasn't whether June would heal, it was whether I would. Because even with Alara in my arms, I still found myself flinching when shadows moved in the corners of her room. Still heard Mara's voice sometimes in the hum of the baby monitor. Still expected loss at every cough or restless night. Dr. Calhoun called it complex trauma imprinting. Said my nervous system had been trained for grief so long it mistook peace as danger. The cure? Time. Patience. And the courage to live without waiting for the next shoe to drop. So I tried. I let Alara fall asleep on my chest even when I feared I'd wake to silence. I let Ian take her for a walk without checking my phone every 30 seconds. I lit candles in the nursery not to summon spirits, but to make the space warm, human. And one day when the sun hit just right, I stood by the window, Alara on my hip, and whispered, "You are allowed to be happy." That became our daily prayer. Not a chant. Not a ritual. Just a truth I offered her like sunlight. Then, 3 months later, I got an email. Subject: an interview with Mara. It was from a podcast. One I'd never heard of, Spirit Lines. The message was brief. "Hello, Mara. We recently recorded an interview with a spiritual medium who mentioned your story, though not by name. Given the sensitive nature of what she said, we felt it ethical to share the clip privately with you first. If you'd like to hear it, click the link below. Cell team." My first instinct was to delete it. But curiosity is a sickness that only closure can cure. I clicked. The audio started with soft chimes. Then a woman's voice I knew too well. "Mara." Smooth, deliberate, too calm. "Sometimes the soul of a child is never meant to reach this world. Not because of the child, but because of the mother's lineage. There are knots in the blood, tangles of pain passed down from womb to womb. When a woman like that finally succeeds in birth, the child becomes vulnerable. Susceptible. That's why the veil thins around them. That's why spirits gather. Not to harm, but to warn. Because sometimes death is mercy." The host asked gently, "And what do you believe should be done?" Mara didn't hesitate. "Those women should surrender the child. Not physically necessarily, but spiritually. Detach. Let the child be reborn through a clean line." I slammed the laptop shut. Ian came in startled. "What happened?" "She's still talking about us," I said, trembling. "Still trying to make my daughter hers." Ian sat beside me. "She can't touch you. Not anymore." But he was wrong. Because words always touch. And hers had the weight of belief behind the warped yes, but real. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I watched Alara breathe. And I made a choice. The next morning I drove alone. To the place it all started. Mara's old shop, the Red Thread. It was still open. Different paint on the walls. Different trinkets on display. But the same bell on the door. And behind the counter, a younger woman with Mara's eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm here to see her," I said. The woman hesitated. "She doesn't do readings anymore." "She'll see me." Something in my voice made her nod. She led me to the back room. There, sitting in a wicker chair, draped in red scarves, was Mara. Older. Slower. But no less sure of herself. "Mara," she said. Not surprised. Not pleased. Just resigned. "I have nothing left to take," I said. "I'm not here for that." She nodded. "Then why come?" "To end it." She tilted her head. I took out a folded piece of cloth from my coat. Alara's first swaddle. And a lock of my own hair. I set them on the table between us. "No more games," I said. "No more rituals. No more prophecies. Whatever power you think you have over Mebernet, release it. Today." She studied me. Then to my surprise she smiled. "You've already done it," she said. "What?" "You broke the line. Not by resisting me, but by loving her. Without fear. She picked up the swaddle, held it to her chest like it stung. I tried to teach June how to sever the thread, she said. But she wrapped herself in it instead. Then why keep speaking? I asked. Why the podcast? Why the warnings? Because I was afraid, she whispered, that if you healed, I'd be meaningless. Her honesty hit harder than any spell. I stood. She's not your vessel. She's not your redemption. She's just my daughter. Mara nodded. I know. I turned to leave. But before I did, she said, call her name every morning. Speak it like armor. Elara, I said. No, she said. Mara, you were the one who was lost. And now you are not. Elara is 8 months old now. She laughs in her sleep. Belly giggles so big they wake me up. She loves rain, music, strawberries, dogs. And when she looks at me, I swear she sees through the dust of generations. Not because she's magic, but because she's clean. And I am finally learning to be too. So, am I the asshole for not listening to my sister? For refusing to believe my baby was cursed? For choosing love over lineage? You can think whatever you want. But I will say this. My daughter is alive. And for the first time in my entire life. So am I.